Hello and welcome to a different kind of video, a video I've wanted to make for quite a while, but had never found the right opportunity, the right moment to do it. And this is going to be kind of an offshoot of a video my friend Daisuke made over on his channel. I'll leave a link to that video and his channel down below in the description, although I've kind of talked about his channel quite a lot recently, so if you haven't heard me talking about his channel, you probably haven't been around here for very long. But regardless, he's putting out a lot of great videos at the minute, and one of them in particular inspired me to make this video. So he made a video charting his top 10 favorite films that he can watch on a loop over and over again. The idea that you can watch a film and be so kind of invigorated by it that you go back to the beginning and you start watching it all over again straight away. And I would love to join in on that discussion, but I can't, because I never do that. and I never really have done that. The last time I think I actually legitimately did that was in the 2000s, the early 2000s, probably when I got A Bug's Life on VHS. Love that film so much. And I would watch it all the way through and then go back, rewind it, sit there for a few minutes while the tape rewound, and then I would watch it again. But apart from that, even Star Wars I would never kind of rewatch immediately following. And I suppose maybe it's not meant to be that strict where like it has to be a film that you watch immediately once you've finished it and you start watching it again. But even so, I really tend to move away from rewatching films over and over again, even films that I love, to kind of savor them a little bit. Not that there's anything wrong with watching them over and over again, but I tend to leave my favorite films for, years even sometimes. It's only my real favorites that I watch once a year, every year, that kind of thing. But there is a topic that I wanted to twist into my own video here and talk about my favorite films, my top 5 favorite films to fall asleep to. But before I get to that, one thing I can say is that I have on occasion in the past few years watched a film and then watched it again the next day, which for me is like crazy. With my mentality, I'm always like, I want to watch new films, discover new films. But there have been a few cases. The Kid Brother, the Harold Lloyd film, was one of them a couple of years ago. There was The Sting, and then also, it's on the tip of my tongue, it was Dog Day Afternoon. I was going to say Groundhog Day. Dog Day Afternoon. And all three of those films I watched for the very first time, fell in love with them, and said to Connie, "You're watching this with me tomorrow." So I wanted to kind of share that new movie feeling when you've watched something new that you love and you want to kind of share it with someone. But I didn't want to wait a couple of years. I wanted to show it to Connie straight away. So those are a few instances where I kind of have done that. And I guess you can also argue I did it with The Last Jedi last December when I went to see it in the cinema, walked around kind of on cloud 9 for about an hour, and then went right back into the cinema and watched it again. But it was such an overwhelming day that it was kind of a special one-time only thing, I think, to do something like that. Anyway, when it comes to watching films while I fall asleep, it's something that has really grown over time. I used to kind of do it without even thinking about it when I was younger. I remember once and I've talked about this before, but I put Star Wars on past my bedtime and was sat on my windowsill watching it going, this is amazing. I'm supposed to be in bed asleep at this time at 8 o'clock in the evening, and I'm here watching Star Wars. It felt kind of stolen and kind of exciting. And then throughout the years, I'd kind of watch TV late at night and watch movies, but I have to turn the TV off because otherwise my mum would know that I've been staying up late. But once we got to the advent of TVs that had built-in timers, oh boy, I was suddenly discovering a whole new outlook on life, a new lease on life, where I would put movies on when I went to sleep. Often it would be audio commentaries I'd listen to while I was going to sleep, and I would drift off with the very low audio of the movie playing, and whether it was an audio commentary or whether it was any kind of film really, and I would kind of find it soothing, and kind of the flickering light every now and again in the darkness of my bedroom was really kind of soothing to me. You hear about these people who can only go to sleep with a Hoover on in the room because it's like this constant noise. That seems a bit extreme to me, but there is something about having something on that I find calming or relaxing or even therapeutic. And there are a few films over the past number of years where I have really, really gone all in on just putting on every night. And I'll go through phases, and sometimes I won't, sometimes I will, but generally I find it really helpful to have something on when I go to sleep. It helps me get to sleep. Sometimes I struggle with insomnia, can't sleep, I toss and turn for hours and hours and hours, and so often I will put a movie on. And it's always great when Connie's away or something. I can put it on without putting my headphones on. Usually it's the headphones, they go on my ears, but which is kind of difficult and awkward sometimes when you're sleeping or trying to sleep. But if I can just have it on in the open, that's kind of like a luxury to me. But I find it really, really comforting. And thus, I have grown into this position in life. Where am I going with this? With these words, where I'm really familiar with how certain films sound. So I'm going to give you my top 5 films that I fall asleep to, in no particular order. Number 1, Empire Strikes Back, my favorite film of all time. I love putting that film on to go to sleep to. It's a quiet kind of opening. They're out in the snow, kind of moody at times, with the music, and not too much action going on. The big Battle of Hoth hasn't started yet, and that's usually where I drift off when, Han is deciding to go out and to rescue Luke from the snow. So all that kind of dialogue with 3PO, where he's like, R2 has been known to make mistakes from time to time. Like, all that stuff is like really burned into my brain. And occasionally I will skip forward to the Luke Yoda stuff to fall asleep to. And this is another thing I should say, is that I don't watch 10 minutes of the film, fall asleep. Next night I carry on where I left off. I'll go back to the beginning, or I'll go back to the parts which I find particularly relaxing to listen to. So it might be a particular section of a film, particular scene of a film even, which I'll start on because I know that I like that part. This is really weird. I feel like I'm exposing myself to the world. It's okay. Only 100 people will watch this. It's fine. So that's one of them, Empire Strikes Back. Another one for a long time was Total Recall. And oftentimes I'd wake up with the menu playing over and over again. But yes, I will either have my laptop next to me on the bed while I'm listening to these films, or if I have the TV set up, I'll put on the automatic timer so it turns off after an hour or so. And even I will sometimes go to the lengths of putting the TV into black and white mode and lowering the brightness as much as possible, so you can barely even see what's going on, but I can hear it, And another one was Total Recall, as I just said, obviously. And that film, I would love listening to the opening section of, and I would always drift off around the time that he gets to Mars and he meets Benny, and the line when there's a big fight going on, and Benny's like, "Welcome to Mars, man," and that's when I start to drift off. And he's like, "Oh, the same thing, more money, more freedom, more air," like all that stuff. That scene was the one that I always remember falling asleep to. So that's another one. Another one is Blade Runner, and that is a really cool film to fall asleep to for me. The music is so dreamy, and it just takes me to another world. And then the opening scene is the kind of the interrogation with Leon, I believe his character's name is, and it kind of builds and builds, and then there's the gunshot when he shoots him, and that kind of almost it jolts me out of it a little bit, but then it kind of settles down into kind of just the rain. Oh man. Just it really helps me go to sleep in the best possible way. And so for me, Blade Runner, it's always from the beginning. Then we have Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. That whole first 10 minutes are so burned into my head, I could probably recite most of it. See, I won't exaggerate and say I could recite the whole thing, but most of it I probably could. And I usually actually skip to the part just after he's blown up his aunt, and Harry is decided to leave the Dursleys. He's like, I'm going, I'm leaving, I don't care, anywhere's better than here. And he drags his suitcase off into the night. I'll start it there, where it's really quiet. And then you get the bus ride, and it's all kind of crazy and stuff. And then he gets to the Diagon Alley, and it starts to kind of slow down a bit. And the line from Fudge where he's like, that's that, and no harm done. Like, that's another part where I fall asleep. So, for some reason, I love that film so much. So, and another thing I like about this is when I'll kind of wake up halfway through, and it's just a film that I love, and it's like, oh, it's that scene, then I'll go back to sleep. Something about it. And my number one, again, not in order, but this is the one I've gone back to again and again and again, is Porco Rosso. And this film, the soundtrack is one of my favorites of all time. I think it's just such a beautiful sounding film, and I always listen to the English dub, and I just get carried away. So I've absolutely listened to the opening 15 minutes of Porco Rosso hundreds of times. People say, "Oh, I've seen that film hundreds of times." For me, like even Star Wars, I've probably only seen all the Star Wars films, or at least the original trilogy, maybe 50 times each. It's not hundreds, but if we're talking about how many times have I heard the opening 15 minutes of Porco Rosso, it's hundreds. The music, the dialogue, everything, the sound effects. I can imagine the film in my head just thinking about the way it sounds. And recently, like very recently, I got back into a Porco Rosso phase, putting it on going to bed. And although recently I've been so tired with work that I'll turn the laptop on and I'll lie there and I'll just fall asleep on the login screen, so I don't even get to the movie. The intention is there, but the will isn't. But recently I've been kind of actually starting it like halfway through the film and kind of acquainting myself with bits of the film that I wasn't so familiar with, particularly the sequence when Porco and Theo are talking at night on his island about his misadventures in World War One. So I've kind of become more familiar with other parts of the film now, but it's almost weird to watch the film because it's almost like I'm imagining my own version because I listen to it so much. Now this is a very weird thing. I'd be interested to hear other people do this. Obviously, I think we've all fallen asleep to a movie, but to actively put it on knowing that the goal is to fall asleep to it is something altogether very different. Now, there are many other films I do this with, and for a long period in Norway, me and Connie used to do this, and she'd put a film on her laptop. She doesn't like it as much. She doesn't mind falling asleep to it, but when she's asleep and it's still playing, it bugs her, and she has to wake up and turn it off. But for a long time, we put Moana on. Like, that was another one that is just the way it sounds, the waves, the kind of the songs, even, and just it's just a very nice kind of warm film to put on while you're going to sleep. We did a lot of the Harry Potter films as well, including Prisoner of Azkaban. But oftentimes it's when like the action gets loud and then it kind of wakes you up. For me, I never really have that problem, but I always do kind of seek out the sections of films which are a bit quieter. In fact, I've even gone so far as to take a film on my laptop and convert it to an MP3 and put it on my phone. So when I'm traveling and I'm in a hotel or something, I can just put it on my phone next to the pillow and it helps me go to sleep. So very, very weird. I've talked about it a little bit before, but never dedicated a whole video to it. And so, yeah, there are some films that I can not watch on a loop, but I can listen to on a loop. And sometimes you get sick of it, and then I kind of will change it up. I have a sleep folder on my laptop. The laptop that I have in the bedroom anyway, which is my old laptop. Karate Kid Part 2 is a big one, actually. I love the opening, 15 minutes of Karate Kid Part 2. I always skip it to after the opening credits, the beginning of the scene with Miyagi and Daniel in Miyagi's garden, and the whole build up to them going to Japan, and I always fall asleep before they get to Japan, but I just, it's the dialogue from characters, I'll leave that one in for free, from characters that you love, and again, the sounds, and certain things that soothe you. The music helps, but also just the general atmosphere of the thing. So those are a few of my favorite films to fall asleep to. I don't foresee myself really ever outgrowing it, nor would I want to. It's something I really like. I recently tried. It's fun because I kind of give certain films test runs. Could this be one of my sleep movies? And I tried Blade Runner 2049, which worked really well. But I had the headphones on. It was a few weeks ago, and the opening sequence with the fight scene between Batista and Ryan Gosling really loud. So I had to kind of start it just after that. and then he's investigating the farm, and then he goes to the city, and the music comes in. It's very Blade Runner. You're like, oh yeah, very nice and relaxing. I fall asleep, and then suddenly it's the baseline test, and so it's like cells interlinked. Say that 3 times. Cells interlinked, and I'm just like hearing these words repeated in my head, and I'm waking up and going, what is going on? Like I got really freaked out, like just hearing all these like da 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 da. So that maybe wasn't the best one to go with, but I haven't completely ruled that one out as a contender for a regular sleep movie. And that's it. So very, very weird video. I kind of thought I would make a video about it at some point. I feel like I have now, and I've kind of done that topic, and I'd be very intrigued to hear if anyone has any thoughts on it whatsoever. If they don't, fair enough. But that has been my very weird and odd video towards the end of the year. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.
He's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you.